My name is Imani Wallace, but poetically, I am known as Lyrical Faith. I am an educator, activist, and spoken word poet. I'm originally from the Bronx, New York, and here currently, in this moment, I am a third year doctoral student in the social justice education program here in the College of Education at UMass Amherst. Spoken word is a performance. Spoken word is an experience. Because it's meant to be spoken, it's written in a certain way that is completely different from what you might notice when you read poetry written on the page.
So how do you really capture what you want to say and figure out how you're going to turn it into this spoken performance as opposed to just written page poetry?
Yeah, I think I got into poetry by way of spoken word. That was my pathway into poetry. That was like my entryway into kind of like finding my voice and finding who I am as a young person. I got into poetry through writing for what I felt was the stage. And how do I capture that moment? I guess you kind of like write with intentions of reading it out loud. So as I'm writing, I'm actually thinking like, well, how would I say this? And if this is meant to be a joke, then am I saying in a way where people are getting it? Am I making a dramatic pause? Am I using the words that like people are like typically like hearing and understanding in order to like help them get the message? Am I like saying it really poetically and complex in one line, but then like breaking it down in a very non-complex way in the next line? And so that's always kind of been just like my rhythm of going about how I'm writing and thinking about spoken word poetry.
I bet her heart sinks into her chest. It falls so low it hit the red carpet she stand upon, almighty and strong, all same color her ancestors shed, just so she could walk with her head held high, that head full of glory.
Can you talk about kind of how Bright Moments came to be and how you decided to start that series?
Yes, I want to thank Jamila Daria, the executive director of the Fine Arts Center. I emailed her and I was like, hey, this was my first semester. I was like, hey, I would love to meet up with you, and I want to get involved with the Fine Arts Center and I want to do things, and I'm an artist and this, that, and the third. And she was like, yeah, let's meet up. And we met up and we got coffee. And I do my research, right? So prior to me coming to Amherst, and then as soon as I had gotten to Amherst, I am looking around for the poetry communities, because as a poet and as a traveling and performing poet, and like I've been able to form friends through poetry like all across the country, I'm looking for what the poetry community is here. I knew nothing about Western Massachusetts, and I was just like, I need poetry, and if I don't have poetry, I am going to go insane. There was like not really that many opportunities for me to like tap into a poetry scene or like some sort of like regular open mic that was happening, and I was just like, well, I'm a curator, like I can just create one. And so I talked to Jamila, we met up, and I was like, hey, what do you think about like a series, like an open mic and showcase poetry series at the Fine Arts Center? I can write a proposal for it. I am super connected with poets who are like award-winning, renowned spoken word artists from like all across the country. We can bring them here. We can like have something for the students who can engage with poetry, and they'll have like a regular event to look forward to, and they will have a space for an open mic to share and get things off their chest and cultivate and craft their art and just grow and learn from each other and learn from the artists. And she was like, yeah, I've actually been wanting to bring something like that to the Fine Arts Center. I'd be open to that, write it up. I was like, okay, wrote it up, did like all these follow-up meetings. Fine Arts Center gave me a budget to work with. And I'm just really grateful because Jamila supported me and believed in the vision.
So one of the things that you do a really good job of is bringing together community at all of your open mic night events. How would you categorize this type of community that you foster at every single event?
So open mic events are a great space for people to grow as an artist, to find their voices, to develop their identity as a performer. And I myself, as a younger artist, when I was earlier in my career, that would be the thing to do. You would go around to every open mic that you can, and you would work on your stuff, you work on your new stuff, you work on your old stuff, and you would get on stage, and you would get comfortable with the stage, and you would get comfortable with your work and with your words and how they are resting and sitting across the crowd and how people are engaging with you. And you would just build your identity as a performer. And so I felt like it was really important for us here on campus at UMass Amherst to have an open mic space where we could have that connectivity and that community and that magic that happens when you touch a mic. Being a part of community organizations growing up and being a part of community open mics growing up and just cultivating spaces where people could come together in the name of art is everything to me. It's become my life's work. Here on campus, when we do Bright Moments at the UMass Fine Arts Center, and we host that open mic and we have that showcase. The showcase portion is important, yes, because I want the opportunity to showcase a featured, seasoned poet who is, known for a particular body of work and has been doing this for a while and has been recognized for their work, because it is an opportunity for poets and people in the crowd to just learn from an artist that is renowned and has gone through a lot of different types of experiences with their work. But then the open mic portion is just as important, because it allows for people to get up and share something for the first time. It allows for people to get up and find their voice, right? It allows for the students that I've forged a relationship with at the Holyoke High School Ethnic Studies program to come all the way out 30 minutes from Holyoke after they've heard me perform and teach a poetry workshop in their class and write their own poems that they worked on from that workshop and get up in front of the crowd and share that piece. As a high school student, they might not have the same type of opportunities to just go around to different open mics and different events to perform. And so that is their moment to do that. We have people that come out from across campus. We have undergraduate students, we have grad students, and then we have students from the other 5 colleges, like students from Smith College have come to my events, Mount Holyoke have come to my events, Hampshire College, Amherst College, other high schools in the area. I've mentioned a couple times that I've worked with the brilliant students at Amherst Regional High School, and then other high schools that have heard about it. And so it's so important for a community to come out and come together, because you never know what's gonna happen. I have local artists that have come to my events, right? People who know me from doing other events that I do in the community. I host an open mic and showcase night at Dewey's Lounge in downtown Springfield. And so people who know me from Dewey's Lounge sometimes will come out and want to support the event. And so there are so many opportunities that people have to just meet new people, to hear new things. And that's honestly how you continue to be inspired as an artist, right? You continue to be inspired because you will come to a space where the main focus is the art, and you are listening, and you are growing, and you are maturing, and you are understanding how other people are coming up with their work. And it's a maker space in and of itself, where you are just sharing and exchanging experiences that, one, connect complete strangers with each other, but then 2, just help you to mature as the artist that you are. All types of things and exchanges happen, and they just, I feel like they would not be able to happen in that manner if it were not for the open mic experience, the open mic community that comes together for the name, in the name of art.
The students are so lucky to have you come in and help them find their identities through spoken word. And you talk about how a lot of them use it as a form of protest and to express their background, and you do that too. How did you choose what you were gonna start writing about, what your focus was gonna be in your spoken word poetry?
How did I choose that I was gonna start writing about? Honestly, just doing life. Spoken word is just, art imitates life. So just like any good song, any good movie, art is just a reflection of what is happening in my daily world. And so as I, was a young person writing poetry and just talking about my issues, I'm talking about things in my family, I'm talking about things that I'm seeing in my community, I'm talking about ways that I'm feeling towards people and about myself. And so art just imitates life. um, so as I began to get older, when I really became intentional about my work as an artist and my brand, it was in college. So for undergrad, I attended Syracuse University, go Orange, and I was a very active member of the Verbal Blend poetry program, and that program was headed by Cedric T. Bolton, who till this day is my mentor and was a huge inspiration and motivation to me as an undergraduate student. And so Cedric really encouraged me to think about my brand as an artist, the things that I'm saying, the stories that I'm telling, and how to be like intentional about that. Like, what do I want that to be? Like, every good artist has a brand. And so I really took that to heart, right? I joined Verbal Blend poetry workshops. I participated, that was the first time I participated in major poetry slams on campus through the Verbal Blend poetry program. And through that experience, I was able to kind of just think about what it is that I want to share and how it's impacting the communities around me. And so I went to undergrad between the years of 2012 and 2016. And there were so many things that took place during that time, politically, socially, as a Black person in America. So I guess those who don't know or forgot or whatever, the murder of Trayvon Martin happened in 2012, March 2012, I believe. And it was right before I went off to college, and everyone, including myself, was protesting about it. It was so upsetting because Trayvon Martin was literally my age at the time. And I had began to write a lot of poems about that experience and how that affected me. And the following summer, in July 2013, George Zimmerman got acquitted for his murder. And it felt like the most unfair thing in the world. I remember I was out at a huge event, it was like a barbecue, and it was so many people, and like we all like checked our phones and we found out, and the energy went from like buzzing to like completely dead. Everyone felt terrible. And so the Black Lives Matter organization was formed in response to the acquittal of George Zimmerman, and a lot of protests happened, and there was just a very socio-politically charged time, and just the screaming and the advocacy for Black bodies to matter in this country was really something that like weighed on a lot of people's spirits. And so as I went back to school that year, I'm writing about those things. Those things are on my mind. I am performing in events and talent shows discussing these issues. And people kind of came to know me as a protest poet, and I would get invited to like do these poems at different events around campus because I'm advocating for these causes. And fast forward, in 2014, 2015, there were a lot of protests on campus because we were advocating for Black students to be seen and heard in a certain way, typical issues that happen as Black students at PWIs. You are advocating for, the belonging and the inclusion and just the understanding of like, your placement in this world and just on this campus, and you feel like you should be treated and have the same type of opportunities as other people, and when you're not seeing that, you're dissatisfied. And so we're advocating, we're protesting, we're speaking out. And then in 2015, the murder of Mike Brown happens in Ferguson, Missouri, and I write about that. And I remember vividly, I think it was my senior year in the fall semester, there was a die-in in the library. That's when there were like die-ins happening like across the country. As far as like a statement against what happened and what has been happening and across the country for so many years. And so the die-in happened, and I performed this poem that I wrote for Mike Brown at the die-in. And so I really just embodied this persona as a protest poet, but it was kind of like that was just something that happened because I was truly passionate about it, and something that like happened because I was in it. Like I was in the work, and I wanted to speak out, and I wanted to talk about these issues. I wanted to raise awareness, and I wanted to get this off my chest about, you know, how this was these systematic structures and policies and practices, and it just everything about like the existence of Black lives, the things that were happening were unfair and unjust. And so I wanted to be able to talk about that, and I wanted to use my platform for that. And that was kind of what I continue to use my platform for. And so in present day, I continue to write, advocate, and discuss what I call social justice poetry, and what I call a continuation of protest poetry, because protest poetry for African American communities have a very long history, stemming all the way back to the Harlem Renaissance. And so I write about that in my work, I write about that in my research. I discuss that in my presentations that I give, and in the workshops that I give for young people and for adults. And so in my poems, I talk about social justice issues, and I bring awareness to things that about like our communities and about my identity that I feel like need to be heard.
You maintain such a composure when you talk about these things, and you're talking in protest and sometimes talking to people who might not agree with what you're saying. How do you maintain that composure? How do you like stand your ground and present those things to an audience that might not be so responding to what you're saying sometimes?
Sure. I mean, first and foremost, it's not really about them. It's about me and my and my words, and it's about the people that are supposed to receive this message and the people that are open to receiving this message, right? And so is my art also for the people that might be opposed to hearing messages like this? Yes, it can be, right? Because the hope is that through art, you are opening up people's minds who might have not been open if they just heard somebody talk about it, or they saw somebody protest, or, you know, whatever, and so they might just like brush it off in another sense, but maybe through art they will receive that. And so it could be for those people, but if it's not, then hey, it was because I wanted to write about it. It was because that was for me. It was for the people that I knew were going to connect with that message. It was for the people that I knew were going to be inspired and provoked by that message to continue the work. And so when I am faced in situations where there are people that are not interested in hearing about the issues that I'm advocating for, that becomes the art that I write about at some point in the future, right? Because if those people are opposed to hearing truth and facts and history, then those are the people that I need to respond to and discuss in more poems, right? And so I just continue to channel whatever my responses are and whatever those discussions are through more art, because that is how artists continue to get their message out, right? If you're not going to listen to me in this capacity, I'm going to write about it in this way, and maybe you'll hear it then. And then also, just as a poet, right, if we're able to do so many things with words that can kind of like mess with people's minds a little bit, you know, if you are able to get someone to agree with one thing, then you're able to get them to agree with you throughout the process of explaining another thing, right? And so if I can get you to agree in one capacity, there are ways that I can use these words to make you agree with me for the more just issue that I'm advocating for. And that's really what matters, that my voice and that my story is heard.